Fedor von Bock was born on December 3, 1880, in Kustrin, Germany, now Kostrin, Poland, a fortress city on the banks of the Oder River in the province of Brandenburg. He was born into an old Prussian military family. His father, Moritz Albert Karl von Bock, had commanded a division in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871. His mother, Olga Helene Franziska von Falkenhayn, was the sister of Erich von Falkenhayn, chief of the German General Staff during World War I, and had relatives within the Russian aristocracy. At the age of 8, Bock went to study at a military academy in Berlin. The education emphasized Prussian militarism, and he quickly became adept in academic subjects such as modern languages, mathematics, and history. He spoke fluent French and some English and Russian. At an early age, and largely due to his father, Bock developed an unquestioning loyalty to the state and dedication to the military profession. While not a brilliant theoretician, Bock was a highly motivated officer. As one of the highest-ranking officers in the Reichswehr, he often addressed graduating cadets at his alma mater, which closed in 1920. His theme was always that the greatest glory that could come to a German soldier was to die for the fatherland. He quickly earned the nickname Holy Fire of Kustrin. In 1905, Bock married Malie von Reichenbach, 1887 to 1910, a young Prussian noblewoman. They had a daughter. In 1908, Bock entered the War Academy in Berlin, and after a year's study, he joined the ranks of the General Staff. He soon joined the Army League, Deutsche Wehrverein, and came to know Walther von Brauchitsch, Franz Halder, and Gerd von Rundstedt. By the time World War I began in 1914, Bock had reached the rank of captain. He served as a battalion commander in January and February 1916. He was decorated with Pour le Mérite, the German Empire's highest military decoration, for his incredible courage and leadership in combat. Bock stayed on as an officer of the post-war Reichswehr and rose through the ranks. In the early 1920s, General Hans von Seeckt, chief of the Army Command, named Bock head of a group tasked with building up what came to be known as the Black Reichswehr. It consisted of labor battalions, Arbeitskommandos, purportedly made up of civilian volunteers attached to Reichswehr units, but its members wore Reichswehr uniforms and received their training and orders from it. Its actual purpose was to provide a way for the Reichswehr to circumvent the restriction in the Treaty of Versailles, which limited Germany's army to 100,000 men. Bock chose Major Bruno Ernst Buchrucker to build up the Arbeitskommandos. The Black Reichswehr under Buchrucker became infamous for its practice of using theme murders to punish traitors, who, for example, revealed the locations of weapons stockpiles or names of members. During the trials of some of those charged with the murders, prosecutors alleged that the killings were ordered by the officers from Bock's group. The journalist Karl von Ossietzky wrote, "The accused did nothing but carry out the orders given him, and that certainly Colonel von Bock, and probably General Seeckt, should be sitting in the dock beside him." Several times Bock denied in court that the Reichswehr ministry had had any knowledge of the Black Reichswehr or the murders they had committed. On the 27th of September 1923, Buchrucker ordered 4,500 men of the Black Reichswehr to march on Berlin in the Kustrin Putsch. The rebellion was quickly suppressed by the regular army and police. In the late 1920s, Bock commanded the 3rd Infantry Division in Berlin. In 1932, he was promoted to lieutenant general. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Bock was one of the few officers who was not purged out of the German army and replaced by Hitler's own supporters. He continued his steady rise through the ranks, being promoted to General of Infantry in 1935 and Colonel General in 1939. In 1939, Bock led German troops into Sudetenland when the region was annexed by Nazi Germany. He was appointed the commanding officer of the German Army Group B, Heeresgruppe B, on October 12, 1939. Bock was one of the many German professional military men who despised Nazism, but also, like many others, decided against protesting the Nazi genocide. This marked a dark spot on his conscience, but it also guaranteed a good career in the Nazi-controlled German army. Bock participated in the invasions of Poland, France, and the Low Countries during the early years of World War II. He reached the pinnacle of his career on July 19, 1940, when he was named Field Marshal. In October that year, he became the commander-in-chief of all German forces in Poland. During Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, Bock was charged with capturing Moscow. His Army Group Center dealt the Soviets some of their severest defeats in the early part of the campaign, notably at Bialystok and Minsk, and also, later, at Smolensk and Vyazma. He unleashed 6 separate major offensives against Moscow in the fall of 1941, but failed to take the city. Bock's forces were caught completely unprepared for the brutal Russian winter. The German soldiers were equipped only with autumn uniforms, as Hitler had not approved the issue of winter gear, believing the war would be over before the cold weather set in. The German tanks and weapons were not designed to function in such severe conditions. Temperatures plunged to -30°C, -22°F. Bock was ordered by Hitler to hold his positions at all costs. The Soviet forces, led by Marshal Georgy Zhukov, launched a counteroffensive, driving the Germans back 100 to 200 kilometers from Moscow. German losses were heavy, and the Soviet capital was never again threatened for the rest of the war. When Bock requested permission in December 1941 to withdraw his exhausted troops, he was dismissed from his command of Army Group Center. In January 1942, after the death of Field Marshal Walter von Reichenau, Bock was appointed to command Army Group South. However, after only 5 months, Hitler blamed him for the failure of Operation Braunschweig and permanently relieved him of his command. Bock was never given another field command. After his dismissal, Bock lived in retirement in Oldenburg, Holstein. After Hitler's suicide on April 30, 1945, Bock offered to take command of the remaining German forces in the north to negotiate a surrender. However, he was killed in an Allied air raid on May 4, 1945, along with his wife and daughter. Fedor von Bock was a complex figure, a talented military commander who was loyal to the German state but despised the Nazi regime. He led his troops with fanatical courage in World War I and achieved great victories in the early years of World War II. However, he was also complicit in Nazi atrocities and failed to prevent the catastrophic defeats of 1941–42. Bock's career embodied both the strengths and weaknesses of the German military leadership in the Second World War. Fedor von Bock was described as a tall, imposing figure with a stern demeanor. He had a monocle that he often wore while inspecting troops. Bock was known for his meticulous attention to detail and his insistence on strict adherence to military regulations and protocols. He was not a brilliant strategist, but was an extremely capable and experienced officer. Bock was fanatically devoted to the German military and the concept of the fatherland. He instilled this sense of duty and sacrifice in his troops. At the same time, Bock despised the Nazi Party and ideology. He was deeply troubled by the atrocities committed by the SS and the Wehrmacht under Nazi command. However, Bock never openly protested or resisted the regime, fearing it would jeopardize his military career and ability to serve Germany. In his personal life, Bock was a cultured man who enjoyed art, music, and literature. He was a skilled horseman and hunter. Bock was deeply affected by the death of his first wife Mally in 1910. He later remarried, but was killed along with his second wife and daughter in an Allied air raid in 1945, decorated with the Pour le Mérite for bravery in World War I. Commanded the Black Reichswehr in the 1920s, led German troops into the Sudetenland in 1939, participated in the invasions of Poland, France, and the Low Countries, promoted to Field Marshal in 1940, commanded Army Group Center during Operation Barbarossa in 1941, defeated Soviet forces at Bialystok, Minsk, Smolensk, and Vyazma, failed to capture Moscow despite 6 major offensives, dismissed from command in December 1941 after the Soviet counteroffensive, commanded Army Group South in early 1942 before being permanently relieved. Fedor von Bock is remembered as one of the most capable German field commanders of World War II. His victories in the early years of the war, particularly in the opening months of Operation Barbarossa, demonstrated his skill at operational maneuver and his ability to lead large formations in combat. However, his failure to capture Moscow in 1941 was a major setback for the German war effort. Bock's reputation has been somewhat tarnished by his complicity in Nazi atrocities and his failure to protest the regime's crimes. While he was not directly involved in war crimes, he did nothing to stop them and continued to serve the Nazi state. This has led some historians to view him as a tragic figure, a talented military leader who compromised his principles for the sake of his career. At the same time, Bock's devotion to the German military tradition and his courage in combat have earned him respect from many military historians. He embodied the strengths and weaknesses of the German officer corps in World War II, highly professional and capable, but also rigid, conservative, and unwilling to challenge authority. Fedor von Bock's life and career provide a window into the complex relationship between the German military and the Nazi regime. He was neither a Nazi nor a resistor, but rather a professional soldier who served his country to the best of his ability while struggling with the moral compromises that entailed. His story highlights the moral dilemmas faced by many Germans during the Nazi era and the difficult choices they had to make. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when we upload new videos. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.